I still remember the clang of metal, the hiss of steam, and the relentless rhythm of the factory floor. I was just a young man when I first stepped into that world, my hands trembling, my eyes filled with questions. Everything was new, noisy, overwhelming, but amidst the chaos, I met him, my mentor. An old technician with grease-streaked hands and a mind sharp as a blade. He didn't talk much, but when he did, every word felt like a lesson carved in stone. Talk less, do more, learn everything, he told me. And from that moment, I never looked back. Day by day, I soaked up every drop of knowledge like a sponge. The factory became my training ground, my battlefield, and my classroom. I studied every machine, every gear, every bolt. I memorized sounds, what was normal, what wasn't. I trained my senses to detect problems before they happened. The old man watched me silently, nodding in approval now and then. I wanted to impress him, not with words, but with action. And as time passed, my confidence grew. I could fix almost anything. But I never bragged, I just worked, silently, consistently, like he taught me. Years slipped by like oil down the side of a pipe, 10 years to be exact. The day he retired was quiet. No party, no farewell speech, just a firm handshake and one final glance, like passing the torch without ceremony. I became the technician then, no longer the apprentice. Yet I carried everything he taught me. I became the man who others turned to, the silent fixer, the problem solver. I never stopped. Even when I was exhausted, I pushed forward. Because I believed that if I kept working hard enough, the world would notice, eventually. But it didn't. Not in the way I hoped. While I stayed late, fixed the most complex issues, and trained my hands to work with precision even in the dark, others, those who knew far less than me, were rising. They were being promoted, praised, even envied. And me? I remained exactly where I started. Same position, same pay, same routine. At first, I thought maybe I was being tested, that I had to be patient, but after months of the same, my heart began to feel heavy, like all my efforts had disappeared into a void. One day, the weight became too much. I left the factory and went straight to the one person I thought would understand. My mentor. Time hadn't changed him. Same calm face, same piercing eyes. He welcomed me with quiet concern. I told him everything, my frustration, my disappointment, my confusion. I followed everything you said, I confessed, voice cracking. I never stopped learning, never complained. I've done everything right, so why does it feel so wrong? He listened without interrupting, his silence louder than any advice. Then, after a pause, he asked something that shook me. "Are you certain," he said, "that you've become indispensable to the factory?" I didn't even hesitate. "Yes," I replied. "No one knows the systems like I do. No one can fix what I fix." He started pacing, as if wrestling with a thought. Then he stopped and looked me straight in the eye. "Take a day off," he said, just like that. No further explanation. "Any excuse you want, call in sick, take time for yourself. It's time to step away." At first I was stunned. Was this really his advice? It felt but intriguing. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Maybe people had grown so used to me being there, they stopped seeing me. Maybe I had become invisible in my reliability. I followed his advice and submitted a request for a day off. It felt strange, even rebellious. That morning when I didn't walk through those factory doors, I felt anxious, like I was abandoning something sacred. But part of me hoped, just maybe, that this absence would reveal something my presence never could. I waited nervously, wondering what chaos might unfold in my absence. When I returned, my heart pounded with a mix of fear and anticipation. Would they be angry? Would they care at all? But as soon as I stepped in, I was summoned to the manager's office. That never happened before. I sat down, unsure what to expect. He looked at me, visibly shaken. "Things didn't go well while you were gone," he admitted. "Machines malfunctioned. Orders were delayed. No one knew what to do. We didn't realize how much we depended on you," he said. And then, the words I never expected, he promoted me to senior technician. I could hardly breathe. It worked. My absence did what my years of dedication couldn't. I felt seen, finally. I went home that day feeling lighter than I had in years. And from that point forward, I learned a new pattern. Whenever I felt undervalued, I'd simply take a day off. Like clockwork, I'd return to appreciation, concern, and sometimes even rewards. It was surreal, powerful. Almost like I'd unlocked a hidden trick to success. I thought I had finally outsmarted the system. that my mentor had shown me the ultimate secret. I had no idea what was coming next. It became a rhythm. I worked hard, then I vanished. I let the absence speak louder than the presence, and each time it worked, until it didn't. One morning, I arrived at the gates only to find them locked. For me, security stopped me. I laughed, thinking it was a mistake, but the look on their faces told a different story. "You've been terminated," they said. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Terminated? How? Why? My legs went weak. My world spun. I had done everything right. Or at least, I thought I had. I stood there frozen, heart thudding in disbelief. My badge didn't work. My name had been wiped clean. I walked away from the factory in a daze, like I was leaving a part of myself behind. The place where I built my skills, forged my identity, it had tossed me out like scrap metal. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. There was only one number I wanted to call. My mentor. I needed answers. I needed to understand what went wrong. He had always guided me, but had his advice led me straight into ruin? When he opened the door, his eyes held no surprise, as if he had been expecting me. I poured out my confusion and anger, the shame burning in my chest. "I did what you said," I cried. "I followed every word. I proved my worth. I showed them they needed me. So why did they let me go?" He sighed deeply, the kind of sigh that carries both wisdom and regret. "You only heard half the lesson," he said. "You left before I could finish." My mind reeled. There was more? I had built my life on half a truth? My voice trembled. "Then tell me," I said, "what did I miss?" He leaned forward, his eyes steady. "You were right to realize that people only notice a light bulb when it goes out. That was the first part. But what you missed is even more important." I listened, holding my breath. If a light bulb goes out too often, people stop trusting it. Eventually, they'll replace it with one that's more reliable, one that shines without drama. You taught them to rely on your absence instead of your presence. That's why they let you go. His words cut deep, because they were true. I had been so focused on being missed that I forgot the value of being consistent. I turned my reliability into a tactic. I manipulated absence into a currency. And for a while it worked, but it was short-term. My mistake wasn't taking a break. It was doing it too often. I stopped being dependable and started being unpredictable. In a place that runs on rhythm and trust, I became a disruption. I didn't realize the very strategy that lifted me was quietly pushing me toward the edge. I had blinded myself. I stared at him, devastated. "So what now?" I asked. "Is it too late?" He smiled gently. "Only if you stop learning." That hit me harder than anything else. I had thought I was done learning, that I'd mastered the craft, cracked the code. But the truth was, life had just taught me one of its cruelest lessons. We are all replaceable if we lose sight of the bigger picture. My hands, once filled with certainty, now felt empty. But in that emptiness, there was space to grow. Space to rebuild, not just my career, but my mindset too. He stood and walked toward the window, gazing out at the fading light. "You see," he said quietly, "life isn't just about being noticed. It's about being counted on. Do you have people in your life who are always there, quietly, reliably, maybe friends, maybe family? What happens if one day they disappear?" I swallowed hard. The answer was obvious. We take them for granted, until they're gone. And I had turned myself into that vanishing light, flickering in and out. I had become a cautionary tale wrapped in a lesson I hadn't finished listening to. He turned back to me. "You sought recognition," he said, "but you confused absence for value. The real value is when you're there, steadily, silently, showing up. Not for applause, not for reward, just because it's who you are." The room was quiet for a long time. I felt the weight of his words settle into me. It wasn't about being invisible or loud. It was about being present with integrity. I realized then I had been chasing the wrong kind of success, one built on moments, not legacy, and legacies are built with patience, not clever tricks. I left his house feeling broken, but strangely renewed. I didn't have a job, my reputation was tarnished. But what I did have now was clarity. I could choose to stay bitter or start again. Not to be noticed, but to be dependable. I found smaller jobs, fixed things quietly. No fanfare. I rebuilt slowly. Some people doubted me, some doors stayed closed. But I kept showing up every single day. No more shortcuts, no more strategic disappearances. I became that light that shines, not to be admired, but because that's what it was made to do. And over time, people noticed, but in the right way. They saw me as steady, trustworthy, unshakable. I got opportunities not because I demanded them, but because I earned them again and again. My reputation healed. My spirit did too. I never forgot what the old man taught me, not just through his words, but through what he let me figure out on my own. Life rewards those who show up consistently, humbly. Yes, take breaks. Yes, know your worth, but never weaponize your absence. Because in the end, it's not how loudly you shine, it's how long you do. So if you're listening to this, maybe wondering if you're being overlooked, don't let that bitterness steer you into making choices that blur your value. Be patient, be present, keep showing up, because the people who shine the longest aren't the ones who flicker and vanish. They're the ones who light the way, even when no one claps. And someday, someone will look back and realize you were the constant, the one who never left when things got hard. That's what makes you truly irreplaceable. That's what makes your light unforgettable.